This is the Town Hall Building Committee, June 1st, 2022, and it's about 7:08 p.m. On the agenda tonight, I have organization of board and vote. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So when we had conversations last week, I think the intention here is to kind of divide and conquer with this organization structure. We have the typical chair, vice chair, secretary. We have all of that, but I think the intent of this was to vote on almost little subcommittees of this meeting so we can divide and conquer. And because we have a real push to special town meeting and to get this project on the ballot, which would happen in October. So I feel as though if we kind of divide and conquer, we'll be able to get there sooner.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Okay. What's the suggestion?
And then wasn't the other part of it, all of our terms are up. So we have to do something with the Board of Select to be presented back, voted back in by the Board of Select. I'm not sure how that process goes. But.
Yep. So I will find out when you can get on the next agenda. I assume everyone wants to continue participating. You've come this far. I can't imagine not seeing it through to the end at this point, unless anyone else feels differently. I would just request that the entire committee come before the board and get reappointed for the project.
Can you let Carolyn in?
I can.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hello.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Carolyn. We just get started with the first thing on the agenda was to talk about the organization of the board. Michelle mentioned that we wanted to maybe set up some subcommittees, official subcommittees to tackle some of these issues to get an aggressive schedule going for the October. Really? October special town meeting? Is that what it is?
Special town meeting probably won't be till November, early December, but the ballot is in October.
Okay.
So we're going to ask for a vote on the ballot prior to going to town meeting. It's just the way it all kind of plays out.
Okay.
Oh, so as a referendum sort of thing. But is it related to the debt or just to the project?
To the debt.
And the debt will encompass not just town hall, but
Right. I think the thought process right now is it would be a portion of town hall. It would be sidewalks. It would be fields. It would be a library project, a harbor project. There's several projects that would be layered into this.
And it would be one vote for all of those projects.
Yeah.
And schools and public safety, that would be separate.
That would be separate. We're trying to find out right now if a public safety study could be done using debt excluded money, but our finance director wants to stay away from any studies being included in a debt exclusion. So. But those are two real projects on the horizon.
Okay. So October is our goal. Okay.
On the debt exclusion, can it be like for 25% of what we're looking at, or 50%, or is it 100%?
So I think the intent, Wayne, if I understand the question, is that we would still go through CPC to fund a portion.
Right.
We would still look at our operating budget and capital budget to see how much that could absorb, and the remainder would be for the debt exclusion. Is that what?
Yeah, I guess so.
So it could be partial. Is that what you were asking, Wayne?
Yeah, I was just, I was thinking that, right now we're faced with a total number that could be 18 to 20 million dollars, and I didn't know whether obviously there are going to be a lot of people that are against that higher number, but if it's if a certain amount of money comes from CPC, and if there's a certain amount that's in a budget for town halls or maintenance or anything like that that could be used, and then the final amount, let's say it's a third of the total, is a debt exclusion. That to me seems like it's a little bit more saleable than, well, you know, I thought in my mind today, it said at $20 million for town hall, if someone gave us free, you know, a free loan of it, a loan without interest, it's going to cost the town $1 million a year for the principal for 20 years. And you look at it and say, $1 million in for that, plus we pay the electricity, this and everything else, starts in my mind as being a very large expense for the town. And what are the alternatives? And so, you know, this whole thing is going to come back up again about remodeling and everything else if the number is too high. And one of the things that I brought up to Michelle was the idea of sitting down with Mark or someone else or a couple of people and taking those 85 or 90% plans and putting and sort of going through each of the items so that we can actually have more definitive answers to some of the questions that are causing an effect on the cost of the project. You know, are we going to have a big standby generator? Are we going to have this parking here? Are we going to have granite curbing that's doing this? Are we, how, you know, what are some of the factors in there that make up the total job? And I don't think so far the architect has taken some of the comments that we've made and made any changes. They've just sort of, for instance, I looked again today at the latest plans and I don't see a sprinkler system for the building, but I see 4 hydrants out in the parking lot. And these things just don't seem to make sense. So I want to sit down, like I say, and take the set of plans that I have or another person has and go over and then represent this through John or whatever and say, these are some of the items that we think, you know, are excessive or that there's no price for or anything, and come up with a more justifiable price and job.
So part of that was, yes, Wayne, going through that now, because, you know, the fire protection thing was a miss. They had actually sent us the fire protection drawings after the fact. So there was a, what's that?
I didn't get it. I didn't see the copy of
All
that.
right. So there was a clerical error there on that as to why those were not included. And agree with the sentiments of going through. And part of that was also if we get the CM on board for pre-construction, that they would be a part of that as well. That they would be a part of the page turn, going through the drawings, identifying gaps in scope, helping us do that pre-construction review. Exactly what you're describing, and looking at areas where we could VE and save some money.
Right, and I think that the is there an incentive for the construction manager to help save us money and get the best project that we can do, or will they be saying this is just, you know, this is okay, or this is standard, or this is what everybody does or something?
Well, it's their honesty and integrity. I mean, they don't, you know, some jobs, depending on how the contracts are set up, some jobs there's split and shared savings as a financial incentive for them to any money that's not used, portions of it go in each direction. You don't see a lot of those. Really what we're doing is we're paying them for their services to go through the drawings, and that's what in a financial sense, there's not always that incentive that maybe you're thinking of or describing, but it is what we're paying them to do and hiring them for, is that due diligence. And if it really reflects poorly on them as a construction manager, if we have a whole sprinkler system throughout the building and the main in the basement is missing on the drawings and it doesn't exist, it really reflects on them as a professional vendor. It's not, ultimately it wouldn't be their responsibility, but if something like that is a major component is missing and we brought them in for a pre-construction review, it doesn't look well on their part.
Yeah. I just, as looking at the plans and stuff, I see things that, in my opinion, a little bit more common sense. And for instance, the 2-inch water line that they're going to run, through the parking lot, all the way around the building, come in the back of the building, versus going into the original town hall and follow the line that's in there now. And in fact, the majority of your bathrooms and everything else are in the front of the building of the town hall, of the existing town hall, not the new addition. There's basically a couple per floor or something. And then bring in a new fire main in the back of the building going around with one of the 4 hydrants that they have there to connect on and stuff. Doesn't make sense either when it's a 20-foot connection in the front of the building and going through the old part of the building with the piping instead of the reverse going in the back of the building. So I just look at these things and just say, they just don't make sense to me. And, so how do you take something like that and talk to someone? And of course, these were brought up with Jason when he was here and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So I think what we got to do is
every item.
I think what we got to do is we got to sit down and do that page turn internally and then present our comments to
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
the design team. Yes, and the reason it hasn't happened so far was because we sort of shifted directions to the CM, bringing them on for pre-construction services and going CM at risk, where they become part of that. If we have a group of 7 or 8 people on the town hall building committee side, they're another entity there to help us. They're basically another person or set of 2 people, whatever it may be, to help us go through that review.
Yeah.
Why can't we come in the front? Well, okay, so if your water service comes in the front, you probably got a 2-inch line coming in. You probably don't want to feed a bathroom right away with a 2-inch line. You might need to hit a pressure reducing valve. You've got your hot water somewhere. So where are the hot water heaters located? Are they point of use? Is it going to be a central in the basement? So obviously wherever the hot water is generated, it needs to go through that point before it can be distributed through the building. So maybe there's not room over there. We know in the front of Old Town Hall is where there's a vault and the jail cells, which we're not going to be touching. So again, but you're right. It's going through those comments, identifying what we think is questions or concerns, and then talking through those. But in terms of money, I think that, from our VE exercises where we reduced square footage and we saw the amount of money we were saving by taking square footage out, it wasn't tremendous. It's not gonna cut even an eighth out of the project if we go through every VE and we find every efficient way to run every piece of pipe and wire and ceiling and granite curve. If we do it, we're not gonna make it a significant difference. I mean, a lot of these costs we know are even coming from the soft costs, from the displacement of town hall for the year and a half that they're going to be displaced. There's a lot of costs coming associated with that, which exists in both a renovation scenario and a rebuild scenario. So I think if we focus in on those, because as Carolyn has said many times, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not, however many $1 million in zero. I mean, there's a sizable investment that will need to be put into this building. And it's really a comparison of a renovation of what we have and a renovation / rebuild. And in both scenarios, both involve town hall and would involve town hall being displaced for roughly a year plus. So you have all those moving costs, and that's where, again, we saw a lot of costs were coming in. It's almost a quarter to a third of the budget.
Right, but there's a few other things like, and I thought Carolyn is somewhat on board when it comes to the handicap parking and the ramps and stuff, that we're not taking, to have 3 parking spaces behind the building and someone wants to go into the auditorium and to vote.
Yeah, and I think these are all really good points. I don't know that we need to go through that list right now on this call, because we're not, this group can't action that right now. And I don't mean to short circuit this conversation, because it's something we need to have.
Yeah.
But is this actually perhaps one of these groups that we need to think about forming coming out of this big group here that then can meet with the architects, that can then meet with the contractor? And I feel like that's what we should be thinking about, because candidly, like, I don't feel like I have a lot to add to that conversation, about whether we need a 2-inch pipe or a 4-inch pipe or any of that sort of stuff. So, Wayne, I think you know that stuff, and I think that you should be having those conversations directly with the architects and the engineers. And Mark, I think that you have some experience in that as well. So I mean, that we have the people who can have those conversations. But maybe we should think about what groups we do want to form subcommittees, so that we can be in a position in October that we can have had all of these conversations that we need to have. So I mean, assuming that's one of the groups, what other groups do we feel like we need to actually?
Right, exactly. And I had always thought that John from Vertex was going to be that person that would be our, between us, he takes it to the, architects and the other people, and then comes back to us and works that way.
And I know Michelle's trying to say something so desperate, but we have to give it to them in some form, in some fashion. We either have to give them a set of marked up plans and hand it to them, or we need to generate a list. But we need to give them something in writing that addresses what our comments and concerns are, because to go through it item by item verbally, and for, at least for me, you're going to miss them, because you're never going to write fast enough. So I think that, again, like Garrett suggested, is having a subcommittee that organizes those thoughts. We've got to organize those thoughts in some fashion, and then we have to transmit them from our group to the design team.
Right.
And
we would. That's great. Michelle, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Did you want to say something on?
That's exactly what I wanted to say. So this goes back to an email I sent. I think it'd be great if Wayne, Mark, and Phil could sit down in a room. I started printing the plans tonight on paper that you can actually read the plans. And they'll be ready tomorrow morning. So I think if we could get something on the calendar for the 3 of you to sit in a room and go through this, I'm happy to reach out to John or Steve and have one of them present at the time, so they can kind of take dictation on all of the things that you're saying need to be addressed, so it's more fluid, and then they can go back to the architects. I think that's probably the best way to do it, unless you think otherwise.
I'm thinking maybe a meeting first with the 3 of us to hash through some of this stuff, and then we could have a second one to get some answers or move forward with John. That would just be my outgoing. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that, in particular, that Wayne has pinpointed that we need to talk about, and just get a red pen and start circling some things on some plans. And then when we get to that point, we can get someone, whether it's Natalie or John or somebody that knows how the project runs, sit down with them and say, no, that's not really happening, or okay, what do you want to do different? Does that make sense?
And I'm just afraid of change orders later on. They always cost you money. And so the more that we can come up with a good plan, and have someone represent us, so that I feel like I can't talk to the architect because he doesn't really want to talk to me. He wants, he would want to talk to everybody in the committee. I think,
And
so.
I don't think it said he doesn't want to talk to you, Wayne. Everybody enjoys
It's
talking.
definitely
to you,
me,
Wayne.
so.
But what I can tell you is the architects, once you start talking pipe and mechanical systems, the architects are they're not the people to have those conversations. They know enough to be dangerous, but it's really that's the kind of conversation that particular trade engineer should be having.
Okay. So when Mark, Wayne, and Mark and Wayne, when's a good time to get together? I figure we could just go in person to the church next door and lay out a couple of big tables and lay the plans out and go over them.
Are we going to go over it? Are we expected to go over it beforehand, or are we going to? Because I haven't. I'll tell you, I started doing my page turn, and I think I made it 3 or 4 pages, and that was months ago.
Yep.
I think honestly, I think Wayne has the most comprehensive set of notes of anybody. I mean, he's gone through it. He has it all tabbed and he has all his concerns listed. So I think just if you use his set and then use the larger set that I'm printing, I don't know that you have to review it in advance.
Okay.
Unless you think you're going to catch something that Wayne hasn't already seen.
Oh,
No.
We'll have them in hand. You'll have plenty of time to go over them afterwards.
And my
Like I
notes
said,
are on
meeting
it.
a second time might be a smart thing to do with somebody from one of the, a rep from one of the companies. Go ahead, Wayne, sorry.
I have everything, but I wanted to talk to somebody else about why I think this and that and stuff like that, without trying to type out like Mark might do, is this is the issue, this is this page so-and-so, this one all the way down, to an extent that it could be 20 pages long. And I don't, I just think getting some other people on board to look at it and see what the ideas I have, why I think there's something here, because it's utilities and things like that are something that I have a very significant.
Sure. When's a good time to, sure, we need to talk about it off this
Yeah.
meeting though.
Yes.
When's a good time to get together for Mark and Wayne and myself? I can do it during the day. I can do early evening. Mark, what do you got going?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's our early evening? I generally don't get back into Cohasset until 5:30.
Okay.
That's like pretty much the earliest I get back here.
Do you have any time on Saturday? Or is
Not
that-
this Saturday, no.
Okay, no, almost any night except Monday night, or that's about the only night that
Uh,
can do it. And this was part of the agenda of,
I mean, does next Wednesday night work?
time
The
for that.
8th? A week from now?
Wednesday, Wayne's busy Wednesday.
No. I'm available Wednesday.
You sure?
Which Wednesday?
Wednesday the 8th.
Aren't you going to the chief's retirement party?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I can't do that either. I'm going, yes.
I thought we already had that. Okay,
How about the 7th or the 9th?
Yeah, either one's fine for me. Want to do next Tuesday, the 7th?
what time? 5 o'clock?
7 o'clock work?
What time?
Yeah, if you guys want, I mean, that's fine. You guys can get started without me and I'll just get back as soon as I can.
Well, 7, what we can do is 7 o'clock after dinner.
That's
Yeah, but
fine
at
too.
7 o'clock, it'll be 10 o'clock before we're finished.
And the problem with that is,
Mark's wife. No,
pick a time then,
how's 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock. Want to meet at the
Are you
church?
worried about food?
Nope,
Okay,
you're going to order in for us.
Michelle?
Want to meet at the church next door to the town hall?
Yes.
Okay, great.
At 6 p.m. on the 7th, is this what was decided? Okay. Do you need someone there to take dictation on all of the changes that you're seeing, or are you going to be able to do that?
It would be awesome to have somebody there. What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting I ask Brian if one of the engineering interns are available to work in the evening versus during the day.
That'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, I will ask.
So we said 6 p.m.?
Yep.
On the 7th,
6th
right, on the 7th of
on the 7th.
June, right?
So while we're on this topic of small committees, we need to talk about outreach and media and things of that nature and have other people working on that. So,
Yep. And we have a PR person to meet with. It's going to help us out with this. Justin.
mhm.
Tucker's kind of been heading up the social media. I think he's looking for something to do. Carolyn, you had some really good ideas of what not to do and some good ideas of what to do. You want to be part of that committee?
I'm happy to help.
Okay.
I can't do anything for 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Other people can get started.
Yeah.
I will be out of the country until June 14th.
I mean, I'm happy to help out on the comms side as well. I don't know what other committees we're thinking about setting up or some committees we're thinking about setting up,
well,
but that's
Okay,
Thanks, Garrett. That'd be great.
all right. Why don't we do?
similarly out of pocket for a little bit of time though, starting
Okay.
overlaps with you, Carolyn. So.
So can we set up something?
Oh, you know what? Tucker's out of town for the month. He's gone. That's why
right.
he's not here.
That's right.
But that's okay. There's going to be plenty of outreach, but we're going to get started. We won't have much going on for the next 2 weeks unless somebody else wants to start.
Well, I mean, Gert and I could meet with him, with Justin, and just start the conversation. I mean, we know what we've been through so far, and he had some great ideas. So do you want to do that, Gert?
Yeah, so as I said, I am going to be out from the middle of next week until June 15th. So the earliest I could meet would be June 16th, 17th. And I don't know, Carolyn, when you're talking about getting back, but if it sounded like you had 2 weeks. So if you're back that week, the 20th, 24th, we could just meet as a larger group at that point.
So do you want to head to like the 24th, something like that, Carolyn, when you're back?
That'd be great.
Or say, so it will be, and Tucker won't be around. Gert, do you want to still be part of that? Will you be around for the 24th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, do we want to do the 24th as a Friday? So I don't know if we want to do
Yeah.
Friday night.
We could do, let's do like Monday the 20th or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
That works for me.
Sorry, I was looking at the May calendar. Haven't flipped it over yet. Okay, so. And you want to do evening? Do you want to do 6 p.m. or what works for you guys?
That's fine for me. Yeah. And Tucker won't be around, so we don't have to worry about him getting back. Carolyn, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, 6 p.m. work?
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Okay, earlier, later? I don't know what works for Justin.
Garrett, can you do it during the day?
As of now, I can. Yeah. So I can block out some time.
That might be better for Justin too.
So if you're going to meet with Justin, do you want to do like a 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Does that work? Or do you want something early in the morning?
3 o'clock
Fine.
in the afternoon is
Yeah.
fine
3
with me.
o'clock in the afternoon would be fine for me too.
Perfect. 3 o'clock.
Okay. That's fine. We'll
Is
make
that
that
okay,
work.
Phil?
Yes, make that work. Yep.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All
So will we meet at town hall for that then?
Can
Yes.
Yeah.
we do
Will you
this?
send
first?
a meeting invitation out, Michelle, or will we?
Yep. I'll have
Yeah.
Justin initiate one tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Cool.
So is that Zoom or at town hall?
In person.
Okay, good.
Okay, so was there another subcommittee that we talked about?
I just want to maybe mention, we used to have a liaison to this committee from the select board. I'm not sure who that is right now, but maybe some outreach to the select board would be helpful. And I don't know if you want to,
Well,
Carolyn.
go ahead,
I
Carol.
had some.
Okay.
Great.
I don't know if anybody else has yet.
I connected with Paul Grady, and we're just trying to find a time to actually talk. We've just been trying to align here on schedules. I sent him a note just before this meeting to see if tomorrow would work for him, tomorrow evening. So
Do you want someone with you on that? Is someone available to do?
no, I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I just had a note here to do the same thing that we did with Gene, which was just have a couple of people sit down and review with the new select board person and sort of get them up to speed and where we're at. But if you're up for handling that, that's awesome.
I'm good.
Thank you.
I did sit down with Jean the other day.
Okay,
I spent a little over an hour with her. And her overriding concern when Mark and I met with her about a year ago was having the debt be included as part of the operating budget, the debt service, and not feeling that that was a realistic possibility. And that's part of the select board charge with this project, is that that it be paid for in the operating budget. And
that's not part of our charge. Our part
No,
of our charge was to be in a 10-year plan, not.
that was her concern when Mark and I met with her. And now, you know, obviously things have shifted because the the price escalation and everything. So we spent a lot of time talking about selling the project and our need to be able to tell people why town hall matters to them. These are all things that we've talked about before, but this was, her point was, for lots of people, as you guys have brought up before and everything, they never go to town hall. They don't know why we need to invest so much money in this building. And so one of the things that, she encouraged was us coming up, as Tucker and many others have brought up along the way, with many reasons, as many reasons as we can to make people feel tied to the building. So whether it's, how that auditorium space could be, obviously having the bathrooms available for common activities is going to really speak to people with young families who come to the farmers market, to people who come to the arts festival, things like that. And anything that we can come up with. And one thing we talked about was maybe that's part of our outreach with the community, is coming, trying to get them to give us ideas. What would they like to see town hall used for and everything? She did not feel the same way that I do about the financial message, that that we need to invest in this building. And if we're going to invest in this building, if we invest a little bit more, we get a much better building. She did not feel that that would resonate with people who don't feel connected to the building at all. They'd be like, why do we need to invest in it at all? So it was just a different take. And, she did not, I tried to obviously I tried to encourage her support, but I tried to get her to say, I really want this project or whatever. But she did talk about, well, what about, why don't we just renovate Old Town Hall and look at office space on 3A? I'm like, we've done that. We looked at that option. We've studied all these things. So we did at least get to talk through a lot of the history. So hopefully she heard a lot of those things, but that's kind of where Jean is coming out right now. The other thing that we talked about was seeing about getting doing research into what we can appropriately ask CPC to give us, like how we can take advantage of that situation as best as possible. So, I remember the Newton project, and I just wonder if there are other projects that we can potentially learn from around the state and see if we can do some research on that. Mark.
Just as we try to sell it in the need for it, I mean, there's the cultural experience associated with the auditorium space and the functional need of the auditorium space when it comes to voting. And then some of the other things that randomly happen throughout the year in that space. But it's also a functional need of the town. It houses our employees that collect the taxes, that send our water bills out, send our sewer bills out, send our tax bills out, take in all the accounts receivable, pay all of the vendors, all of these functional needs, so that when it snows on the roads, that there's people behind the scenes that make this happen, that there's been a significant amount of turnover within our town hall, within every other industry, with every place. Our little town is just one more thing that has experienced a significant amount of turnover. And not to put Michelle on the spot here, but like, who wants to work in a building that's falling apart where bathrooms barely work? I mean, we need good people to work in our town to keep it up to the standards that we expect and we want. And, when a line striping disaster happens, they can pick up the phone and they can talk to somebody and they're going to take care of it. But that's a whole nother side of the coin here that is functionally needed. And it can be frustrating when people, why do we need the town hall? Just let it fall down. Like, well, where are these people going to go? We need a house. We need a home for our good people that work in this town to hang their hat, to sit down in a seat and do their job. It's just mind blowing that they think that people are going to work from home in this capacity. Like birth certificates and death certificates are going to live on somebody's kitchen table, that our town clerk is going to issue all facilities from their basement office. I mean, it's comical in some sense, but I think,
Couldn't agree with you more.
I mean, I think it's also communicating that out, because like I said, this, town hall, I mean, it's not the schools, it's not the school committee, it's not the school administration offices, but all of the money that hits the schools, every dollar comes through that building. And without that building, without the people in that building, it never even gets to the school. And I think that people need to be maybe reminded of that linkage.
And Mark, just speaking from someone that works there daily, it's more than just a building that processes things for the community. It's a community center. So oftentimes there are people from the community that just stop in. They just want to hear what's going on in the town, and they can't get that because either they don't have access to the internet, which is a big problem, and they just want to see someone. They want to see where their tax dollars are going. They want to hear from you. They want to understand what you're doing. So I think that's also another piece of it that no one really thinks of. Sure, can people work remotely? Yes, but do people in the community get the same service? Probably not.
And it's working remotely too on certain instances. It's not working remotely every single day, day in and day out. And I think that that's what these people need to be reminded of. And I think that if we don't hit that head on in some PR sense, that if we just focus on the auditorium space there, then we're not addressing what really needs to be addressed, because that's a big part of the issue is the functional need of that building. I mean, it's a hodgepodge, right? And it's at some point, we're probably going to go back to in-person meetings. I mean, we had one last week because it made more sense for us to be in person, right? And yet there's 4 other people around, people coming and going because it's one big giant room up there. and it's just not laid out properly. It doesn't make sense. So again, I think that addressing that too is important.
Very well said.
Good.
And then I just want to add one thing, separate from that, is we keep talking about the mechanical failures that could happen and may happen. Well, we have a major one right now. And we don't know the full impact of it just yet. But it's anywhere from the $10,000 fix range to the $35,000 fix range. So that's a huge mechanical failure, not really within our control, but just because of the age. So there's things like that that are going to continue to happen, and we're going to continue to Band-Aid, obviously, to keep the building running and serviceable. But this is when you start looking.
She wanted to push out, she thought fall was too soon. And we had a big conversation about why fall was not too soon and how important it was to go in fall. And that was one of the primary things that I said, it's going to get more expensive. We have the risk of, something catastrophic happening, and logistical planning wise, it gives us the time to, get the building emptied and start the construction as soon as the ground thaws in the spring, so that we can get closed in and save the town money in the construction process. So we talked through why this fall was so important. Don't know if it was received, but it was at least communicated.
Right.
I think one of the sad things about the town is that we don't seem to fix things when they break. And so many people think that we are intentionally not fixing things so that they can go ahead and get something new or something better. And that whole thought really gets to me, that's not the right way to look at things. I mean, not to fix, a small part of a ceiling in the men's room or ladies' room or something that's been like that for 7 years just drives me crazy when I go into the town hall, thinking that visitors go into the town hall and residents that for the first time, and they're walking through something for years that is just ignored. Is it the air conditioning unit that's going to be the problem right now? What was the large item?
The elevator,
The elevator.
which is huge because that makes our building ADA accessible.
Right. Now, the elevator probably isn't even on a maintenance contract.
No, it is. It has been. Yep.
So
I think it's state law, it has to be, but
Yeah.
Well, that's to be inspected.
It has
to be
been.
inspected.
And you know that if the building was remodeled, it would have to be fixed, it would have to be gone over. And if we go forward with the project and everything, it will be a new one also. But you just have to fix something like that now. And
I know when we've talked with people in the past here about, whether it was Brian Joyce or whoever, there's certain things in the building that are no longer serviceable. Their parts are not available, and they're forced to come up with creative ways to keep something going because it just doesn't have available parts anymore. So it's kind of a Frankenstein Band-Aid resolution because, again, it's aged so much that it's no longer supported.
but we have a 100-year-old building that we're working with just a 30-year addition. And so many.
But 30-year-old mechanical equipment, I mean, is, it's not the old, it's certainly not antique in a sense that there's more equipment out there that's older than that, but it's still pretty old. And from electronics wise, it's outdated, and a lot, at some point it's like going to buy a VCR. Like, you can't go buy a VCR anymore. You can't go buying parts to fix a VCR. So how do you think an air handling unit that's 35, 40 years old is any different? At some point, they just stop making parts for it.
Right, I agree with it. But on the other hand, we bought some residential type of stuff to keep going that won't possibly last the 30 years. So so these little split systems that we had put in 15 years ago, they're starting to break, which is what happens in a person's typical home. You can't have a 30-year air conditioner that you've never done anything with. Not only have they changed all the refrigerants and stuff, but you can't get parts for those either, and they wear out. Things wear out. So, okay, but it just, it was like when we painted the building, oh, we're gonna start fixing it up in 1 year. Well, now it's been a couple of years since we painted it, and it,
It'll probably be ready for a new paint job before we paint it, before we get to rebuild this thing again.
today, some of the paint is peeling off on the sides and stuff. But okay, and by the way, there are things that I don't know where in the plans they may be, but when I went over the building today and I was looking at different things saying, this is a lead cable from the phone company and it goes up here and this, that, and I'm thinking to myself, are they good plans for us to fix the facade that may have had a coat of paint put over on it, but is there some sort of an allowance or something on the estimates that we're getting, or are we thinking, because we're not thinking about residing the whole thing, I don't think, right? But where are those items that will end up being an extra if they're not identified on the plans?
So that'll come out when we sit down, the three of us, and make that list. Those are the things we want to.
But there's also, there's two ways to that. There's one way, Phil, which is what you just described, that is us making a list of what we want in there. And then the second part would be the CM, which is why we went with the CM at risk, because, and which is why it has more of a upfront cost and it's more expensive upfront to go with a CM at risk, because in the budget from the beginning, you have those kinds of things that, okay, well, you're going to have a certain amount of replacement of this, whatever this is. And the CM puts that in the budget as allowances. Now, if we overrun the allowance, that's on us as the owner. If we don't spend all of it, it just comes back to us. But again, that's where we have hired a professional partner to engage with us and to go through that process and identify where our risks are going to be financially and put money to it so that we don't get led down a stray path. Whereas in the design, bid, build option, if it's on the drawings, that's what they own. And if it's not on the drawings, it's a change order.
Right.
And so that's again why in this situation, it's more important to have a partner that's going to be next to us, helping us through that.
And some things are so in your face, but they don't often get covered. For instance, there are about 12 air conditioning units, most of them built into the wall, a couple of them fairly neat, that they're obviously going to be taken out, but is there money in there to put the walls and finishes back up and do all that type of thing? That just somebody just might not think about that going forward. And yet it could be a $10,000, another $10,000 change order or something. So anyway, continue.
Good. I
Do you
can't.
have more on the select board outreach that you wanted to cover?
That's a good idea.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Did you have more on the select board outreach that you wanted to cover?
I just wanted to make sure that Paul Grady got up to speed. Mark has offered to do that.
And Phil, when you weren't able to attend last week with us, we volunteered you to talk to Jack. So
I'm sorry, what?
when you weren't able to join us last week when you were away, we
There must
volunteered.
be,
Yep. No, Jack.
must
you
be
got
a
Jack.
connection problem. I'm happy to talk with you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Oh, we figured you would be.
Yeah.
And
Is that
then,
what you
and
meant,
obviously
Carol?
the other Corey and Diane are pretty well up to speed and on board with it there. So I think
Yep.
I think they've gotten a pretty good update.
Yeah,
But I'm trying to connect with Paul this week, because on the 6th is when they have their goals meeting as a select board of select. So
Okay.
trying to connect with Paul before then.
If you can
Okay.
meet with Jack before then, that would be good too, because then that could be part of their goal setting process.
And has a high likelihood of coming up in that meeting.
I can't meet on the 20th, by the way. I just realized I'll be in Connecticut. Can we pick another date? And first is fine on Tuesday, is that?
Does the 21st work for you, Carolyn and Garrett? Yep. Carolyn?
I don't know. We can try. I have to take my daughter to school, and I don't know if we're going Tuesday or Wednesday, but let's try it.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you. I did touch base with Russ Medenium, CPC. They have no meetings planned, and they generally do not meet for the summer. We did talk a little bit about having something prepped for them as soon as we hear some information on some new numbers for, particularly for the renovation of the old town hall. So at least communicated with him. He seems satisfied at the moment, but it'd be nice to have something before the end of summer for him, just so that they can start thinking about a number, a real number, because I don't, with everything going up, I can't imagine that we're still asking for 4 million. It seems like it's going to be more than that. But we need someone to figure that out and tell us how much that's going to be.
So if we do when we get the CM on board, if we have them do the cost estimate, we can make sure we ask for the cost estimate in a certain format, dividing up how we want it divided up. And we should, I don't think necessarily tonight, that's probably a good conversation to have Vertex be a part of, but how we expect the CM to divide up the costs in terms of a schedule of values between old building, new building, site work, so forth. And then we'll, aside from that, so that'll give us the percentage of Old Town Hall, and then we should be able to then apply that same percentage to all of the soft costs and do a whole schedule of values between, however, whether it's Old Town Hall, New Town Hall, and site work, or Old Town Hall and then New Town Hall / site work, however it seems best, but have that schedule of values so that we can see the percentage of Old Town Hall and appropriate the soft costs adequately. And I think that through that exercise, that'll give us a new number as to what Old Town Hall will be, and we'll probably find that is more than we'll get from CPC.
No, I think that's great. I think that was John's suggestion, to get the CM on board and have him do that work. My concern is I don't want to be particularly waiting till August or September to get these numbers. I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get a CM on board and how much work he's going to be able to do within a month or 2 months. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but yeah, it would be nice to have all that work done by the CM and have accurate numbers to present to CPC.
The CM can come up with the numbers in less than a month. Usually they go out,
Okay.
they'll take it internally, they'll send it out to the market, which is basically subcontractors. They'll get pricing on it. They usually give the subcontractors a week and a half to 2 weeks with the pricing, get it back, level it, put it all together, and go through it, identify any holes and gaps, and then provide it back to us.
We still
that
have decisions
process
that
is-
need to be made before they can do that, though. I mean, as far as, windows and finishes and all that kind of stuff that can add.
Yeah, they'll price what they get, knowing that whatever's on there right now and whatever it shows for the windows right now, knowing, but there's there's always holes. So what they usually do is people will carry something. Everybody carries, if it's something like the windows, they'll qualify what they carry, and they'll usually often give an option for the most logical alternative.
Do we select the CM from 2 or 3 CMs, or are we, is John or someone at Vertex saying this is the company to go with?
No, we select them. So there's a process where I think we narrow it down to about 3, I think John said, and then those 3 get shortlisted and provide us with a financial proposal. I think, Michelle, I think that's how it works. So I don't think, if 6 or 9 CMs were interested in this, I don't think they would all provide. I don't think stage 1 is they provide us with a number. I think they go through it's a kind of a qualifications and best fit.
Because that process probably takes another couple of weeks, though, in terms of the timetable, right?
Yes.
So we sort of have a deadline here, and it's going to be important. And I think John already filed the necessary paperwork with the state, right, to go on that process. So he likely is going to be in touch with us soon, I imagine.
Yes.
With the next step.
Yeah, so we've got a meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight. And will John be there?
Yep. So I just wanted to schedule. I just put this on the schedule every 2 weeks on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We don't have to have it every 2 weeks, but I think it would be nice to have something consistent in case anything comes up. And yes, John or Steve or someone will be there from Vertex. I didn't invite them tonight because I figured we just should talk through some of our process and our plans to move forward before having them in on the conversation.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Anything else before I have Dave speak?
The only one thing, sorry, David, you've been so patient. We need to talk about minutes. Who's going to keep them? Where are our missing minutes? Are they accounted for? We really need a process, especially if we're going for a fall town meeting. If we don't have all of our minutes updated, people are going to say, well, how do I know what you're doing? I can't see your minutes. There's been no minutes posted. So I'm not sure which dates are still outstanding. But if you could get them to me so we can put them on the agenda for the next meeting, that'd be great. And then moving forward, figuring out who the minute taker can be would be ideal.
Are the videos, the meeting tonight is being recorded? Are
Correct.
those recordings show up on the website right afterwards?
They do. They show up on YouTube after the fact. However, you do need a written record of the minutes.
Well, can we hire someone that will take the movies and turn it into minutes?
I
mean,
so we are looking into that, believe it or not, is having people attend meetings and take minutes. There's other communities that do that.
well, it was standard with the appeals board and things like that of having a stenographer there, and definitely when large projects with planning board and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They did it. And
Yeah. It's just like anything, Wayne. I think it's so difficult to find anybody to work.
right, very tough to have a volunteer be charged with doing something that takes several hours and stuff of their day. Also.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more.
Okay.
I'm on a board in my own town and I'm the minute taker, and it's challenging for sure.
Okay.
David, would you like a job?
I've already got one, but thank you. Yes.
All right.
All right, so make sure we get those that have minutes outstanding. I have a couple of them. We'll get them done and get them into Michelle within the next week and a half or so.
And I'll see, maybe these engineering interns would like to, make a little extra money and attend the meetings and transcribe for us.
the two engineering interns might be a good place to start.
Yep.
That they would learn as well as, find out, for instance, if one or two people are hired, they'd be they would actually be working on something that they will be more involved with as the project goes forward and after the project is done, in terms of their knowledge of where everything is. They've got to be the ones that have to, study and work on the HVAC controls and everything else. I mean, that's something you don't want to fall down on.
Yeah, no, I agree, Wayne. So I'll reach out to Brian and see what his thoughts are.
Good.
Great, thank you. We good? All right, Dave. Dave Farag was on a project on the town hall back in 2007, 2008. And Compass, I'll let him go through it. He's pretty thorough about knowing the inside and the outside of town hall, but it was not insignificant. There was a lot of work done. And he had filed all of his paperwork smartly with someone that could keep records so that he could find them. And he's got really good records of all the work that he was done. He's happy to forward some more. And I have some of those too. So it's some really good records of the work that was done at the time. And Dave, you learned quite a few things from that. There were different situations, different projects that you worked on that you could share with us that either you might have done differently or found problems with and were able to fix them. So if you want to go right ahead, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you, Phil. David Farag, 39 Beechwood Street. The reason I'm here tonight is because the meetings have now been put on YouTube. I was able to catch the last couple meetings that the town hall committee had done, and I know there was a lot of discussions regarding the windows and sort of what kind of restoration or what should be done on them. So with the original town hall restoration committee back in 2008, when we did the feasibility study, the germination of that came from doing a feasibility study to see what should be done, and the feasibility study was just done on the old town hall, not the new, not the annex. So I'm going to specifically just talk about the old town hall. So from that, they did all the different analyses. I'm sure you've all read, electrical, structural, on and on and on, building code analysis, and then we also did historical. We had a historical person, Sarah Chase, who was from Lexington, who was from the BU School of Historic Restoration. She came in and she was able to date basically everything within the old town hall of when things were put in, because as you know, there was the original one done in the late 1800s, and then there was a renovation done in 1928. So there was some specific different things that happened at those two times. But regarding the windows specifically, she had dated all the windows as far as which ones came from which time period. And then when we came out of that feasibility study, at the time, the selectmen wanted to start on the path of sort of renewing the old town hall. We hadn't gotten to the annex yet. And so the project that came out of that was an article at town meeting. Was about $300,000 at the time to do some basically low-hanging fruit exterior restorations only, and that included the windows, some the pilasters, the gutters. At the time, the old town hall had residential gutters, not industrial-sized gutters, so the water would literally sheet right off, go right down into the basement. So we were literally flooding our own basement there. The drainage, and then the chimney, and then some of the roofing and things, whatever they found out there that needed to be patched. So that was all encapsulated within that $300,000. And so in coming up with the specs and the scope for that, Carr Lynch and Sandell was the architectural firm that did the feasibility study. And you might know Jim Sandell, he lives in town here. He was one of the architects on it. And John Hecker worked with him, who was a historical architect on the project as well. So he meticulously went through in restoring the windows, what would need to be done to restore the windows. So all of them on the old building were restored except for 6. And those would be the top ones. I believe it was the top ones because we didn't know out of the feasibility study when they did a full restoration of the town hall, if we were going to flip back the floors, because originally the auditorium used to be on the second floor and the offices were on the first floor in the 1800s, and it flipped in 1928. So we didn't know going forward if that's what the town wanted to do or not, to create more space at the time. So the top, I believe it was the top 6 windows weren't touched because we would have to move them around if there was a full restoration. But the rest of the windows were popped out. Before that, we ended up putting out a specs, a bid, a scope for historical restoration. The person, anybody want to qualify, they had to pre-qualify as being into historical restoration. We didn't want the window boys coming with new Pella windows. We wanted an actual restoration on it. So taking that extra time to go through that and what the scope of that would be took a lot of time, but that's how you get, as you know, the end product of what you're going to get and sort of the materials that would be used and how it would be done. And that would keep the longevity for what we would end up getting at the end. So we ended up getting a Campbell Construction out of Peabody. They did historical restoration. They had done a lot of places down in Martha's Vineyard. They had done the lighthouses down there and a few other town hall and historic restorations. So they would literally pop out a window or two at a time, bring them to the shop, totally restore them, and not just the windows and the panes and taking off all the paint. One of the things with the windows that there was that basically every other year somebody had put another coat of paint on them, so the windows were about like twice as heavy as they should have been because of all the paint that was on it. And they were more, as I told Phil, they were more like guillotines because when you lifted one up, they would come slamming down because of the weight of the windows. So they scraped it all down, redid the paint on it, and then the pulley system that was in every window was refurbished to what the original was as well. So all of that was in the specs and the scope and the construction documents. And so Campbell Construction did that. They did the gutters, as I said, pilasters, some of the pointing on the chimney, because at one point the town had painted the chimney for whatever reason, I don't know. So they kind of repointed that. I think they did some bracing on the chimney as well. And then they had a little bit of contingency that they did a few other things to fix the front roof, the overhang when you first go in, that one you can almost touch, that was in bad shape. So they redid that. So those drawings and everything we had put in 2 places. One was the town hall, and then the other one, because David Wadsworth was on our committee, who was the historian, we put another set with the Town Historical Society. And the reason we did that is we knew that the town hall documents at some point would probably get lost, stolen, shredded, or who knows what. In doing a number of the different town hall things through the years, at one point we ended up finding the town charter in the basement of the town hall, which was in a box somewhere. So Carol St. Pierre was the town clerk at the time, so a lot of those historical documents she ended up getting and was able to put those into the vault and to put those into safekeeping. So there's a set at the Historical Society regarding what that bid scope, everything was with that piece of the restoration. And that might be helpful that you can take forward with what you're looking to do with the windows and what the costs are and things. And it might save you some money. I can't speak to the current condition of the windows because that was 14 years ago on some of them. So some might need fixing or a dress up, but at least the major parts should be intact there, that you won't need a full-on restoration with the pulleys and some of the things that are in the windows. And that should hopefully save a few bucks along the way. So that was the sort of the feasibility study, and it was just to get the first part with the exteriors. A couple quick things on that is we did have to get a release from the Second Congregational Church because the lot line on that side is minuscule. So any of the scaffolding, anything they were going to do there, you do need help from the Second Congo Church. And then also with the drainage, we dealt with Dan Coughlin and the sewer commission, because some of the drains, again, they were pointed in different directions, and we had to work on that as well, seeing how that would tie into some of the drains in the front of the building. So that's sort of some of the things to look forward to as you go through the current one. I would say one thing that if we would change it from what we did is we did interior storm windows as a part of it, instead of exterior, for a number of reasons, was the ease of being able to put them in and out. Because at the time, the town hall didn't have a staff to have somebody get on a ladder, 50 feet up to do the exteriors on the second floor. Thinking about it now, if you told me now, I would probably go with exterior storm windows to try and protect the windows more in the winters to come in the future. So that was one thing I think I would do as a take back from the project back then. And that was what I want to bring up on that. Just a couple other quick issues. I know that you were speaking about other things regarding getting the information of town hall out. At the time when we did the feasibility, we penned 8 articles that we put in the Mariner at the time. And so I have those, and I'd be happy to just give those to you, and you could use pieces of them. You could use them whole, not, or at all. And it had the whole history of the old town hall and what had happened there. And what we've done is we've gone through the town history, the Jackie Dormitzer book, and David Wadsworth actually had a pamphlet that he wrote that's in the Historical Society about the history of the town hall at the time. And so we kind of merged the two, and each article was a separate thing about the old town hall. So about what it looked like back then, you know, the drama club and the playhouse and everything that they had there, and it was just every article was a different thing about it, and then what the feasibility study was. So I'll give those to you, and if you want to pick any of that out that you want for anything in the future, fine. And that might be helpful. But going forward with outreach, I think it's great that they have all of these meetings on YouTube, and that's one great way to get the information out, but whether it's Cohasset 143 or otherwise, to get it out to the community so that they can see sort of and get a relationship with the town hall as to what it was and what it could be going forward. Because there were a lot of things. I know when I was talking to Phil, you know, we used to have Cub Scout meetings there. There used to be ballroom dancing there. There used to be banquets there. And unfortunately, because of the decrepitness of the old town hall, it doesn't have a natural constituents anymore because it can't be used for anything. We've been heating the town common for about 50 years now in the old town hall. So one of the things with this project is that we're finally going to be heating the town hall and not the town common. Because in the wintertime, if you're ever in there in February, you really can't hold a meeting in the Grand Hall at all. I know when we had Concom years ago, we couldn't do some of the meetings there because it was so cold. It was minus, it was 17 degrees or less in there in some of the times in the winter, and in the summertime it's too hot. So that's part of the issues there. And then also to remind the people that in the old town hall, that was built before there was code, any code of any kind whatsoever. In fact, I think it might even be there before electricity. So you know, everything that was built in there as the years went forward was being retrofitted in that old town hall. And you can see the history of electricity as you go through it. There's still not tubing. There's still all sorts of crazy things that were jerry rigged in the old town hall as far as its mechanical systems and electricity. And finally, I know when you're talking about everyone saying that everyone's going to go on Zoom now for meetings, when we had the library issue come up, if you remember, when the library was on South Main Street and it was looking to move to the old Osgood School, it was brought up as one of the arguments that we're not going to need all this space for the library, that we're not going to need books anymore. It's all going to be online. We're not going to need these things. And I think anyone to a person would say that the library is one of the great institutions in this town. If you go there, there's still books. There's plenty of online resources that they use. The kids have the story time. Adults use it for different things. The moving of it from that old place to the expansion where it is now has been paid us back tenfold for what we were able to get out of it, and the number of programs that they were able to run out of it, especially the children's programs in the library, expanded big time from what they were able to do. The old one was in a basement. If you remember, all the child books were in the basement that we all used to have to go down to. So I think that's a very similar argument for this, is that once this is redone, built, the annex and this one, is that there's going to be lots of new opportunities, programs and things that are going to run there, and it's going to make it usable for everyone in the town from 8 months old to 80 years old, and that's something that needs to be brought up. Because I realize the prices are going to be tough. I realize where everything's going construction wise, but when it is rebuilt and renovated, it is going to be very useful, and it'll be used once again like it was in years past, but for probably different things, which is fine. There used to be basketball games there, by the way, in case anybody didn't know. They used to have basketball games in the town hall. So it had lots of different uses. So that's it
Hey,
in a
David.
nutshell. Yeah.
Do you want to join the PR committee?
I could help out if anyone
I'm
drops
listening
me
to you.
a line.
I'm like, I'm sold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, it's
We have a vacancy. What's
it's-
happening
it's
here?
really it's really eye-opening. I mean, we've been all of us here have been sitting through these meetings for the last couple of years and going through this. And, until you said when last time this building was renovated was 1928. I mean, everybody has got to go, oh, holy cow. I mean, this building has not gone under a serious renovation since 1928. We're coming up on almost 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well,
just,
They
And
must
then-
have done something in 1985 when they added the addition.
Not to the old part. They just built the new
No?
part. Yeah.
they probably just cut
Well-
cut into it. They just probably just
Yeah,
cut into
yeah.
it.
They did. It's
And that speaks volumes in my mind. I mean, the fact that this is technology that is that old. This is pipe and wire that's that old. I mean, you cannot at that point argue that it's not past its usable life. I mean, again, all I can think of is when Steve Gomer stood up in that meeting and and talked about insanity. This is insane. I mean, we just keep talking about these things. This building hasn't been renovated in almost 100 years. Most people don't even live in homes that are that old to begin with.
Yeah, no, we know more about the town hall than most people know about their own homes, or even the doctor knows about them, with all the building code analysis, with the structural studies, with every study that we've done on it. We know this place inside and out, both sides at this point. And we know what has to be done. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's maybe a little wrinkle on what you can do with the annex, but the old one for sure. I mean, it needs a full on renovation to bring it up to code. I mean, you wouldn't live in a house that had, the kind of electrical system that the old town hall lived in, and your insurance company sure as heck wouldn't insure it. That's another thing. It needs to be brought up to date, but it will be a gem when it is. I mean, people will use it no matter what they do in town. They will. There will be programs that can run out of air. Some of the things that you brought up, I forgot, like the farmers market. It's an easy connection to that when you have the operating bathrooms and things. You could even have things housed in there, so when it rains out, they could go right in there. Art festival for sure is an easy one, and then all the other things that there are in town. You could. It'll be
Now the Echo Fest.
Yeah, it'll be a good liaison to the common, and it's there's parking there. It's one of the only parking places we have downtown other than the town parking lot. So it's but I would say that the people do need the information, because we have there's a lot of transiency in town. The turnover in town is about 10-15% a year. I mean, I know the real estate market's slowed now, but if you go 8 years, you've almost had a full turnover of everybody in town. So their recall or understanding of the history of the town might be different, especially if you're moving in. So I think that needs to build that relationship with the people. And before we're even talking about money or how much the plumbing is or anything, get everybody on a knowledge base that's the same of what we're talking about. And then from there, you can talk about the different intricacies of what needs to be done. But to at least get that, get everybody in the same level of knowledge base, I think would be the best thing to do. And however that can be done, whether it's, like I said, 143. I know there's a PR person at the town hall. That might be something. I mean, I know for one of the things we did back in the old cable channel, we actually have a tape of me going through it and through the attic and, sucking in all the, whatever the hell was in the attic up there. But it was, we went through every nook and cranny and went over everything and why, what needs to be done and why. And I think getting those videos and you guys have done some videos too with the different articles for town meeting coming up, but getting those on YouTube, getting those spread around to everybody so that they can physically see, because you can go into places that they're not going to go. Nobody's in the town hall basement for any reason at all, unless you're in the drama club or you're getting some town records. So to bring people to those different aspects would be helpful to show them what needs to be done and why.
Don't forget about going into the old town hall basement to change out a old style screw-in fuse.
Yep.
To all of the electrical systems that are on the wall of shame down there.
Yeah, no. So that's some outreach pointers, but at least now with a person at town hall to help with that, those could be some ideas to, see what's going to go on that front as well.
David, your information on the windows, I think is just incredible that you've sort of done a great job of itemizing or, describing it that may in fact save us $100,000 if the architect just said, all the windows are old, all the windows going to be replaced, just go ahead and get rid of them.
Yeah.
And now we can say, no, wait a minute, let's look at this and see whether or not, they're 18 years old, but how they can be, addressed and reused, and then maybe go ahead and the ones that weren't changed on the second floor there, concentrate on those and maybe do something very similar.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And, but like I said, that's where the construction, but going through that to create those documents, I realize you can have, a GC or whatever come into the picture, but sitting down with the architect and going through what needs to be in that bid package, because what you put in there is exactly what you get. And so if you spend the time to do that, then on the other end, you can get the things again with specifics about what the workmanship is, what the types of materials they're going to use, especially on the restoration things. That's where you get the longevity out of it, coming out of the other side. So that it does take a little bit of time and money to do that, because they're going to sit with you and charge for it. But boy, I mean, you're going to save it on the other end, because the thing we were concerned about the most in doing that particular restoration on the exterior was we didn't want just any contractor coming up bidding on it who didn't have any historical restoration experience whatsoever and didn't have the materials or the shop to do that, or at least the connection to a subcontractor who could do that. So making sure that there was pre-qualifications and things that wiped that slate clean.
Dave, did you do any presentation to historic? I know that David Wadsworth was probably president or something of the society at the time, but did you do any presentation to satisfy anybody about what you were doing to the old town hall?
Yeah, we actually did a open house at the Historical Society for anybody who wanted to know, and it was kind of on the history of town hall, and then we got a little bit into the end about what the feasibility study was and what we were going to do. But so it started with that, and then the last portion of it was the feasibility portion of it. But with the feasibility that we did, I mean, we uncovered a lot of town history. Like David, he didn't know his grandfather actually helped design the original town hall.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, when we went through all the stuff and, and then of course, the dating of the windows and different things. And so, it really, it uncovered a lot beyond the typical building code analysis and all the other stuff we did, electrical analysis. So and that was the thing, was we needed a base to see what are we looking at before we even, before you want to dive in and start piecing off to say we need to do this, that, the other thing. You need to at least get a base of what are we looking at first. And historically, the town had kind of used it for what it needed at the time. I mean, that's really what the history of town hall was, and it changed through the years with the town. But the last portion of this history to the recent, like I said, because of the facility and the nature that it's in, it doesn't have the usages that it could have if it was just a regular operating building.
That seems to be, I mean, it seems to be a tough thing to sell. We know of the programs that'll move in there. It makes sense to us, but how do you portray that to the public to make them understand the real value of what that could be? Yeah,
no, I mean, that people weren't going to like it when it was an $8 million restoration. They didn't like it when it's a 12. They're not going to like it when it's a 50. The price tag nobody likes the price tag, but it's just something when you have a capital replacement that needs to be done. Nobody says, geez, we've got to replace the heating system in one of our town buildings, and we don't like the price on it. It's something that needs to be done. And the same thing with this. It needs the old portion needs a full renovation or restoration, and then the annex section needs to be redone as well. I mean, yes, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think the way you sell it though is having someone like you, David, who grew up in this town, who went to Cub Scout meetings and played basketball and did ballroom dancing and did fun things in town hall because it was a nice place to be and the space was available. In the same way that Fran Collins got up in town meeting when they were talking about the harbor redistricting thing, and he talked about, this is going to be amazing. I remember we used to have the ice cream store and the newsstand and everything else going around the harbor, and it paints a picture for people and makes it come alive. So I think that's really helpful is the kinds of things that you just shared.
One of the big mistakes that they made when they built the annex, which without cliff noting it too much, was they kind of had a price, and then they said, how do we fit 15 pounds into a 5-pound bag? And then that's what happened. So there was a hard price. We're not going to spend more than X. This is what we're going to do. And then we bought 3 floors and we only have 2. So we bought a 3-story building with only 2 floors because, again, they connected it to the old in order to connect it to the old. So how, efficient was that to build a 3-story building when you only have 2 floors? And that's why when you walk up to the second floor, it's like you say, geez, these stairs are steep. Well, you're walking up 3 flights of stairs in a 2-stair column. So, I think to not repeat that and actually get our money's worth this time and get the benefit from it, everyone is going to, they're going to love it when it's done. They're not going to love it in the beginning, but that's it. I know it's a hard sell, but that's what needs to be said. Too many times at town meeting. I mean, I've been going to town meetings since I was 10 years old and I was a Boy Scout. Not everyone, but pretty much everyone. And, everyone's afraid to say it's something that's going to actually cost money. And when they try and tiptoe around it and things like that. And at some point, when you have a big project like this or the other ones are going to come down the pike, it's going to be, yes, it is going to cost money, but this is what we're going to get for it. And that's that. I mean, the field study, I don't know if you've seen that field study to do the fields over in the town. If you tally it up and you calculate it, I think it's over $30 million between all the fields that they had. So, and some were for new places that we don't have and they might not be done. So that's just to redo the fields in this town. New school, whether it's a remodel or a full model, you're talking 70 million to 150 million on that. And so that's, that's what you're looking at as price tags. So I realize with this one, the way it's been dragging is that it's now bouncing into potentially, if they're looking at some of these other big price items, do we want this versus that? It shouldn't be an either or proposition. It's going to be, we're going to need these specific things. The other things are going to get looked at in specific ways. And then you're going to have to do them in a capital budget like you would anything else. Your town has always had those issues. We need schools, you need a public safety building, you need a library. These are the basic things that every town has and that are going to be on a capital replacement in some order, in some way, shape, or form. So there's nothing new that a town doesn't have that we have. It's going to be your schools, your town hall, your fields. These are the things that we normally have that any town has. So.
Well, that's fabulous. So what are you doing June 21st at 3:00?
Sure. What was the June 21st one? I didn't catch.
That's the meeting with Justin.
Oh, the architect?
No.
No. The communications guy.
Oh, the communications. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, no, absolutely. We could do that. In the meantime, I'll pass the articles over to Phil to disseminate. You can check them out. And there is a pamphlet, like I said, that David had written. It was a short 2 or 4 pager on the history of town hall that we had kind of took the stuff from, but it was attributed in the article. And And so that was, but again, that story stops at 2008. So I didn't get any of the new stuff past then in those articles.
Was that funded by CPC at that time?
I think most of it was, because it would come under that. Yeah. And with this one, you'd have to look again of what there could be portions in. I've said this before. If you look at the annex and you redo that, there could be portions of CPC money that could be used for that if it's for historical things. So things like the vault that holds the historic documents that the town clerk is going to have. That's a big ticket item. That could be CPC money, can be used for historical things in a new building. If you had something that houses historical items, if you had things that were, the history of the town as you went in or something, or the town seal on the ground, or, there's potential for CPC money to be used for those things. And again, the vault is a big ticket item because it has to be on the Secretary of State guidelines. It has to be that if the whole building collapsed, the vault would still be there. That's the basic guideline on it. That if there was a fire or anything like that, that the vault would be the only thing standing other than the foundation.
Vaults today are according to that same thing, aren't they? The ones that we built in the addition.
I believe so. Yeah. But I know cost wise, when you're building the building, that's one of the big ones, because it's a rare item to put into a typical building. And the strength that it has to have in the steel or whatever the hell they build it out of,
We ended up with two of them. The one today is stacked on top of each other because of the weight and everything. And
that's right. Yeah.
In the new addition, it'll have the one in the basement and one in the thing. Now, just so you know, the floors aren't going to line up in the new town hall annex either. It's going to be the same 2-story building and a 3-story home.
Oh, well, that if you want to line it up that works too. But as long as there's the space to fit everything. I mean, when we looked at it before, we counted out every single meeting out of, and there was over 250, 300 meetings that happened in the town hall through the year between all the committees and subcommittees. And there's probably even more now because there's more committees.
It was in 2017, pre-COVID, during the 2018 version of this, there were 672.
Oh, well, there you go. It's even more. Yeah. But the idea that everyone's going to be on Zoom land is that's just not going to happen. There's going to be in person. You're going to need that. Your public hearings for things, you're going to need, to be in person for a lot of them. And the boards, as much as people don't look at it, your ZBAs, your Concoms, your planning boards, these are all adjudicatory boards. They're not they're not there for fluff. They're there for legal matters that get appealed to court all the time. So you have to have the home for those. It's not going to be on your computer.
David, terrific. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for letting me take the time, but I will write it down if that's okay. What's the meeting with the public affairs person? Is it?
Yeah, I'll make sure you're included on the invitation.
Oh, that's fine. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yep.
Dave, appreciate you stopping by and going through all this. It's great to be able to use this knowledge and everything that you went through, bring it forward and have it for us to make the project all that much better, right?
Well, thank you all and all the work that you're doing and going to do in the future as well, because it's something that's certainly needed, and the town will be a lot better for it when hopefully it's all done.
Awesome.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
And as I said, I'll send everything to Phil in the meantime for all the back articles and things that I said.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. That was amazing.
Are there more of him?
Can he join our committee?
We have a vacancy now, right?
I don't see why we can't. I don't know what he has for time, but we can ask.
We can at least get him on the subcommittee for the PR.
Well, I think
Certainly had a sales job going there.
yeah. Well, I think it's possible that he may be more valuable off the committee as a reference. So we can talk about that. Yeah. But Yeah, his recollection and the documents that he has available, just, I mean, just gonna make our job a lot easier. So
He was just a wealth of knowledge. That was great.
it's good stuff. Do you have anything more, Michelle?
No.
Anybody else have anything more they want to add? Okay, we are scheduled, we have the 2 subcommittee meetings scheduled, and we have our next board meeting in 2 weeks.
So can I ask a question? Actually, that just prompted something. So if Carolyn's out of town, Garrett's out of town, Tucker's out of town,
We can't do it.
I don't know that there's a whole lot of value in doing it unless we can make sure that Josiah is available.
Want to do
Either
it?
that or whatever's preferred, or we can just have our subcommittee of Phil, Wayne, and I 2 weeks from now and skip next week and use that time slot. Either way, I mean, whichever, at that point, whichever works better, if it's next week or next Wednesday,
If the design package is this thick, you might want to do both.
that is true. I mean,
Divide it in two,
Yeah.
because you'll be seeing cross-eyed by the time you get to page 100.
Well, yeah. I also want Josiah involved in this too. I'm not sure quite how to do that. Maybe he could be at the second meeting and I'm not there or something like that, but he does have a copy of a drawing there from last July, as I mentioned.
so that brings up a separate question. So Michelle, and how do we handle that from an open meeting standpoint? We just post
Right.
the meeting and we just, I mean, that kind of meeting it's not going to be recorded if it's live.
It's not going to be recorded. If you're in person, it's just a subcommittee meeting. We just have to post it as such. And
Okay.
if people choose to attend, they're welcome to.
Correct. Yep.
But if
But
not,
for us-
Someone has to take minutes, even if it's a subcommittee meeting. If it's a posted meeting, you have to take minutes. Just be aware.
Okay, but you
It
could,
doesn't have to be detailed. They can just say, we did page by,
review of the plans.
yeah.
okay. We'll do that.
So,
So do you want to still stick with, we'll still stick with next week and then we'll see how far we get and then we'll use the time slot 2 weeks from tonight as a backup to either finish or
Do a progress anyway.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
And then that way, when everyone's back from various trips, that we can reconvene as a larger group.
Yeah, and we could get a report on where we stand with the CM.
Yeah, that'd be good to get from John.
Because in 2 weeks, he should have some names or whatever.
Yeah, hopefully he's identifying, people so that we jump immediately, assuming, once we get the okay.
Yeah, and again, I mean, just another thought here too. Maybe a subcommittee at some point. I think the windows in Old Town Hall is probably a more sizable design item than I think most other stuff. I think most of the other stuff is designs that the architect will just take care of for us. And then there's design elements that the architect will ask for our input based on level of finish, what price point we want to be in terms of finished materials. But I think the windows probably deserves a separate subcommittee just to analyze all the different options. Because I think it's probably one of the more important decisions that we as a group make. Again, it's if we're rebuilding what's there, it's, that's old technology, but there's, a single pane. And if they were done 14 years ago, that's even more concerning that they're probably not going to even last that long when you look at the condition that they're in now. And so just weighing all the pros and cons versus getting, so going through all those items, I think it probably deserves its own attention.
And perhaps the subcommittee it could have someone from the one of the historical groups on it to be a part of the process, and maybe even someone who is able to add value there.
I think,
Great idea.
Phil, is Russ Benetti in that world in terms of a professional capacity?
sorry?
Is Russ Benetti, doesn't he have something to do with windows and doors or something in a professional sense?
I don't know the answer to that. I know he's working on a historical project down where he lives, but I don't know.
But I think that, just assembling a subcommittee there to focus in and zero in on that.
That's a good idea.
That sounds good. I know I learned a lot with the window replacement of the church, working with a joinery shop.
Yeah, I mean, you guys having gone through that, that's a valuable experience.
Absolutely.
Because just very basically, I think if you go with the rebuilding options, the historic, you get the historic characteristics, but you don't necessarily get the energy performance. So it's just weighing all of that.
But the storm window helps with that too.
Correct, and but again, it is the con there is it's another thing for somebody to manage and take care of, another item to get lost, broken, misplaced, and just if we can, again, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying it's just there are pros and cons to everything, right? So it's seeing what
There are no
works.
solutions, only trade-offs.
Yeah.
That's a famous economic quote.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, are we doing it? Are we doing an historical type of window in the new edition that will somewhat match the old town hall? Or is it?
I hope so.
I would say from a style perspective, yes, but there's no question that the new building would have double pane, triple pane, I presume double pane windows versus a single pane.
And
I mean, you cut out there, Wayne, sorry.
On one of the designs that the architect presented, I thought it was some very modern looking windows where the stairway was going up in between the old edition and the new edition and the old town hall. And I didn't, as a feature.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a couple of different options there. We had vote. I forget what we even voted on at the time, but
well,
They were
we came up.
stepping up and we leveled them off to make them look more
Yeah.
historic.
Gert had a great idea on that, which was to take what's the second story windows in the front of town hall and put that very similar style on that staircase. And that's what we came up with. It looks very nice. Looks much more appropriate than a stepped contemporary design that was in there before.
Okay.
We good?
Tell me, anything more?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you very much. Talk soon.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.